Hey there everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Now today, for this episode, I would like to reflect on a film that I was requested to blog back in 2016 before I had my leg reoperated. Jumanji. Now, as I said during that blog, I think it's a pretty good movie, despite having some scary moments and dated effects, but it does make up for it with its cast, including the late great Robin Williams, its sets, and character development. Also, after that blog, I did ask myself if I would ever blog Zathura, since it is a sequel to Jumanji book-wise. Well, I have been thinking about it for some time, but then I decided, no. But anyway, just recently, my grandmother donated her VHS version of Jumanji to me. And for this blog, I'll be looking into a recent actual sequel to this movie. Released on December 20th, 2017, the movie is Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Now let's get started. 4 high school kids discover an old video game console and are drawn into the game's jungle setting, literally becoming the adult avatars they chose. What they discover is that you don't just play Jumanji, you must survive it. To beat the game and return to the real world, they'll have to go on the most dangerous adventure of their lives, discover what Alan Parrish left behind, and change the way they think about themselves, or they'll be stuck in the game forever. So, what do I think? Well, I thought it was pretty good. It was action-packed, though a bit mature and less intense than the original. But before I get ahead of myself, let's move on to Mustang notes. In July 2012, rumors emerged that a remake of the film, Jumanji, was being developed. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Columbia Pictures president Doug Bergrade said, "We're going to try and reimagine Jumanji and update it for the present." On August 1st, 2012, it was confirmed that Matthew Tolmich would produce the new version, alongside William Tietler, who produced the original. In August 2015, Sony Pictures Entertainment announced that they had scheduled for the film for a December 25th, 2016 release. Internet reception to this was negative, with some posters remarking that the announcement came too soon after the death of Robin Williams, who portrayed Alan Parrish from the original movie and had died in August 2014. The news was heavily criticized by Bradley Pierce, who played Peter Shepard in the original movie, as well as by E! News, who stated that they felt that the remake was unnecessary and kind of insulting. Whew. Thank God they made this movie into a sequel instead of a remake. On October 23rd, 2015, Scott Rosenberg was hired to rewrite the script for the movie, whose production was a high priority for the studio. On January 14, 2016, Deadline reported that Jake Kasdan had been hired to direct the movie. From a script by Rosenberg and Jeff Pinkner, based on a draft by original writers Chris McKenna and Eric Somers. James Newton Howard was originally attached to compose the film's score, but after the film's release date was pushed back half a year, he was replaced by Henry Jackman. Principal photography began on September 19, 2016 in Honolulu, Hawaii, and wrapped up December 8, 2016 in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, what I find interesting about this movie is that in the beginning of the film, the board game transforms into a video game cartridge. And since the world of Jumanji is now a video game, the movie almost feels like Spy Kids 3D. I also find it interesting that the avatar's information can be displayed when they touch their chests, and their 3 lives are tattooed to their arms. Plus, they even mention Alan Parrish, the main character from the original movie. Lastly, the main goal in order to get out of the game is for the gang to return a gem called the Jaguar's Eye to an enormous jaguar statue and call out Jumanji's name. Also, like the first film, the main characters get some character development, and there are parts that feel pretty intense, like a rhino stampede, as well as a hippo eating one of the main characters, a huge horde of snakes, as well as crocodiles and cheetahs, and much more. Also, the action and adventure in this movie is very hardcore, kinda in the same level as the Indiana Jones franchise. However, there is one scene in this movie that shows the gang drinking margaritas, which brings back embarrassing memories of a time when someone snuck margarita bottles into my bed one night. And there is some crude humor and adult language in this movie. But even though some of it is shown off screen, I don't think it would be a good idea to show this movie to younger audiences. Also, some of the characters that the gang meets on their journey may seem bland, but that's only due to the game's programming. Anyway, let's move on to the cast. Let's start with Dr. Smolder Bravestone, aka Spencer Gilpin, played by WWE wrestler turned actor Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who got to be in Moana, Journey to the Mysterious Island, San Andreas, and Race to Witch Mountain. In reality, Spencer is a nerdy video gamer, but as Bravestone, he's an archaeologist and explorer. Bravestone's strengths are stamina, courage, reflexes, climbing, smoldering, intensity, and boomerang throwing, which in my opinion is pretty hardcore. He apparently has no weaknesses, and he is the archetypical masculine, intelligent, and courageous video game hero of the story. Next, we have Professor Sheldon Shelley Oberon, aka Bethany Walker, played by Jack Black, well known for his performances in the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, Shark Tale, the 2005 King Kong remake, and Goosebumps, which will be getting a sequel this fall. Bethany is a beautiful, popular, but self-centered teenage girl. But as Oberon, she's a cartographer, cryptographer, archaeologist, and paleontologist. Her strengths are her field of expertise, but because of her obesity, her endurance is her weakness. Next up is Franklin Mouse Finbar, aka Anthony Fridge Johnson, played by Kevin Hart, whom I know from The Secret Life of Pets, and got to be in one of DreamWorks' worst movies from last year. Fridge is a football jock who lacks confidence to succeed academically, and has Spencer write his essays for him. As Finbar, he's a short zoologist and weapons specialist. Fridge chose him due to his misreading the character's nickname as Moose. Finbar is Bravestone's weapon valet and is skilled at, cranial assault. His weaknesses are cake, strength, and speed, which to me sounds a bit silly. Next, we have Ruby Roundhouse, aka Martha Capley, played by Karen Gillan, whom I know from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Martha is a teenage girl who refuses to do physical education and becomes Spencer's love interest. As Ruby, she's a commando, martial artist, and dance fighter. Ruby is a proficient in karate, tai chi, jujutsu, and capoeira, and her only weakness is venom, such as that found in various animals like snakes in the game. Similar to Bravestone, Ruby is an archetypical, intelligent, athletic, beautiful, and scantily clad video game heroine of the story. Another character to talk about is Jefferson Seaplane McDonough, aka Alex Vreek, played by Nick Jonas, who got to perform with his brothers in Camp Rock and Night at the Museum 2. Alex is a young boy who got sucked into Jumanji 20 years before Spencer and the others did. As McDonough, Alex is a mysterious guide, adventurer, and pilot in the game, who waits for and joins up with the other avatars to escape Jumanji. McDonough's strengths are piloting and making margaritas. And his only weakness is mosquito bites, which is bad for him since the jungle is teeming with mosquitoes. Throughout his 20 years in the game, he's been living in a treehouse built and once occupied by Alan Parrish. Finally, we have the game's villain and final boss, Russell Van Pelt, played by Bobby Cannavale, who got to be in Ferdinand, The Nut Job 2, the terrible 2014 Annie movie, and Ant-Man, which is also getting a sequel this year. Now, you may be asking, is Russell anything like Van Pelt in the first movie? Well, sorta. You see, Russell is a corrupt explorer seeking to control the Jaguar's Eye, an ancient gem whose power he is demonically possessed by. I find it kind of creepy that several animals like vultures, snakes, cheetahs, including several insects like scorpions and centipedes, do his bidding. And now, let's move on to my final words. Overall, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, is a pretty good standalone sequel. Several parts of the movie are very nostalgic and reminiscent to the original Jumanji. The main characters are great when working together in order to get through the game, and they do get a lot of character development. The world of Jumanji is very breathtaking, and the action is very hardcore and thrilling. However, I wouldn't recommend this movie for everybody due to the crude humor that happens in this, but if you can ignore those scenes and watch this movie for the way it is, it's a pretty decent movie if you like action, adventure, or video games. I give this movie a 91% out of 100. Well, that's it for today, everyone. Be sure to join me again next time, because we're going back to Corona. Mustang power!